As Jennifer said, I'm going to be talking about the NFT revolution. And in particular, what I want to do is help level set what an NFT really is and why they're a lot more than simply images that you might, upload onto a blockchain. So let me go away here. All right. When we hear NFTs, we think about things like CryptoPunks, and that makes sense because that's how they've been introduced. But I want to make everybody aware that NFTs are much more than meets the eye. And for me, I like to share what makes NFTs remarkable, why I was so intrigued by them once I started to build upon them. Here is one sort of overall statement that I think summarizes for me what's magical about an NFT. And it's the ability to transfer an item, something of value, at no cost to another person with no effort. And that person who receives it knows with certainty that what they got is authentic. And if you ponder as much as I have about other things that might come close to this, I think you'll find there really isn't any other way for someone to send you something, in particular, somebody who you don't even know. So they're anonymous. They send you something of value, and you know instantly, at no cost, no effort, that that thing they sent you is the genuine article. That is the promise of NFTs. And that is, of course, a lot broader than simply something like a video clip or a music clip or a piece of art. The thing to keep in mind here is that thing you're sending is not a piece of art. It's actually a computer. It's a Turing complete computer. And that's a very powerful idea, that you can send somebody literally a microcomputer from phone to phone across the internet, knowing that that underlying software code has never been manipulated, that the thing you're getting is genuine. And what that means is that the underlying code that it was originally created around has not been changed or modified. So it's probably helpful to figure out or to learn where these NFTs came from. And the origin of NFTs is really massively multiplayer online games, an area that I've been involved in really since the 90s at their birth. Some of you, if you're a little older, you'll remember some of these games. Ultima Online. Ultima Online was the game my partner first created a marketplace around to allow for people to buy and sell video game virtual items for fiat, for real money. Ultima was the first game that allowed people to exchange in-game virtual items to each other. We, my partner and I, wound up using that capability to build a marketplace that allowed people to post those items if they wanted and to buy and to sell them. So if you look at online video games, massively multiplayer online games, what you'll find is that the in-game virtual items are quite similar to NFTs with just a few distinctions we can talk about. World of Warcraft, of course, and then I put CSGO here, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, because those begin to really look even more closely like NFTs, because CSGO really popularized the idea of skins. A skin is a video game virtual item that has no in-game utility. It's strictly for cosmetic. And that, of course, is a lot of how we think about NFTs. So here you have in CSGO that olive drab plain rifle. Well, a skin would just be dressing it up. So you have a visual change, but it doesn't do anything to the rifle itself. But that visual change is highly appealing to a lot of people because that particular skin you see there is unique. In fact, all CSGO skins are unique. They're one of a kind. They use generative art. Some of you might have heard that term. It's where you have an algorithm that comes up with random patterns and textures, which allow for a unique piece of art. In this case, a unique skin. A lot of people think, oh, the NFT people created generative art. Generative art, I was doing that in the early 2000s. So it's been around a while, but NFTs have really popularized it. Something else that's pretty amazing, when people say, well, how big are NFTs, or how important are they going to be? Think about this. In the video game world, of which NFTs, as you can see, have their origin, in the video game world, there are about $200 billion annually in primary sales of virtual items. Every year, globally, the video game industry is generating 200 billion US in the sale of video game virtual items. The secondary market, so once you have these items, the secondary market is 50 billion. So you're talking in aggregate a 250 billion annual business. That's a way of thinking about how big the NFT space will ultimately be. And I'll tell you, I think it's actually going to be bigger than that for reasons to come. So if what I just showed you is what an NFT, the origins of an NFT, where they came from, it's probably useful to ask, well, how do they differ from their video game cousins? Well, here's the biggest way they differ. The dark overlords of the internet, Apple, Google, Steam, Facebook, now Meta, Tencent, and of course there's others. These companies control the virtual items within the games that you play. Some people don't know this, but let's say for both Google Play, the App Store, and the Apple App Store, you cannot withdraw the virtual items that you buy on games that you play in the Apple App Store or Google Play. You're not even allowed to sell them for money. So you can't even transfer them within the game you're playing in order to recoup some of the money you spent. And keep in mind, people spend globally $200 billion a year on NFTs. A lot of those are in app stores. So the fact that you cannot monetize them, and generally speaking, you're not even allowed to transfer them, but if you do, you're not allowed to transfer them for money, that is a significant limitation compared to blockchain-based NFTs. And if we go forward here, another big difference is when you are using video game virtual items, they not only restrict you in ways such as you can't sell them to each other, but they can also literally for any other restriction or ban you for any other terms of service violation. And once you're banned from an app store app or from a video game, you lose all of those items that you had. This is near and dear to me because for over 20 years, my partner and I operated video game virtual item marketplaces. And if a video game company didn't like something, they would just ban the items that we were trying to sell to other people. So on a blockchain, nobody can ever ban you. No one can ever seize your virtual item, your NFT. So that alone should make most people say, I'd much prefer to have items on a blockchain than trapped within someone else's ecosystem where they can do what they want. Of course, the other big difference is on blockchains, we call them permissionless platforms. And that simply means that you can build on a blockchain anything you want, limited only by your imagination, which is a very powerful thing if you're an entrepreneur. You can build any capability. For instance, you can let people borrow NFTs or lease them. Anything that can be done in software to a limit right now, only by, I should say, not just imagination, but also the technical abilities of the blockchains. We're still probably 10 years away from them being as robust as standard internet-based systems. But at least there's no one person saying what you can and can't do. That makes them permissionless. And as I talked about at the very beginning, NFTs are also very different from their video game cousins because they're computers. they're Turing complete computers that you can program to do a myriad of things. As I said, right now, many of the blockchains don't have the scalability to do what you could typically do in an internet sphere, but that's okay. We will get there little by little. But from now on, as you think of NFTs, I want you to be thinking of them just as microcomputers are sending back and forth, because that's a very useful way to think about it. If you are an entrepreneur or developer and you're wondering, hey, how can I partake in this arena? It's really nice that NFTs began in a way that is very familiar to people. They're digital collectibles, they're images. That allowed them to be popularized. But now we can get about to doing things with them that have a lot more utility. When you think about them as well, this is just something that I still find quite useful. All of the metadata that can be embedded in these objects, every time they're traded, there's a recording on the blockchain of what address they were traded from and to who. You can also, depending on the robustness of the smart contract where they were born, they might have a lot of interesting data about the entity, the company that created that particular NFT, how rare they are, or that particular one. Anything really that is involving the NFT collection or the particulars around the business that created them can be embedded in that NFT, and once again, can never be modified, so that you know that information is accurate. When I hear the term Web3, and by now we've all heard this term a lot, unfortunately it's been hijacked by a lot of marketing people. So it can mean so many things that it actually means nothing, which is a lot of times what happens in the consumer world. But I would give you one sort of way to think about it that makes Web3 exciting, which is this marrying of smart NFTs, or NFTs that can be programmed, with permissionless platforms. Because if you can create an NFT that does a lot of cool things, and you can build that on a permissionless platform, then you have a truly open economy where third parties can then come and take those NFTs that you created and were paid for and do other things with them that make them even of higher utility. And Web3, of course, the promise of Web3 is this decentralized arena, decentralized system where everybody can contribute to it in different ways. For instance, you can mine in order to ensure the security of a blockchain, and you can be rewarded for it. You can provide other types of applications, messaging apps, file storage, which is of course very useful. A lot of people store the original image of an NFT on IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, which is a decentralized file storage system. For Web3 to actually be what I think a lot of us hope it to be, everything that you do in the traditional internet world, you have to be able to do on the Web3 world, but do it in a decentralized way. So you can't, for instance, rely on Amazon Web Services for the computing part of it. You can't rely on any kind of file storage system, Apple, Google, Microsoft, in order to store your files. They have to be decentralized, because anytime something is centralized, of course, it's vulnerable to that centralized authority deciding they want to change how things are done, which can disrupt the ability of that Web3 ecosystem to exist. I make this point for one simple reason. We are very far away from true Web3. I would gather at least 10 years before the majority of the things we do on a blockchain are fully decentralized. I know we hear a lot about this term decentralized, but very, very few of them are even significantly decentralized today. Web 4, by the way, for those who care, will be around hardware. For many years, I was a venture capitalist, and we ignored a lot of the hardware investing because it was hard and it was expensive and it had a lot more risk to it. But in order to get where we want to, for people to have sort of a Ready Player One experience, hardware needs to have a significant advancement. And it's not just semiconductors. It's display technology. It's the CPUs that drive a lot of the computing. And of course, the augmented reality visual devices that maybe in 2025 we'll start to see. So as you can see, a lot more to do. But as an entrepreneur, I hope those of you listening here are thinking, wow, there are a lot more opportunities for me to partake in Web3 and then its cousin Web4. I mentioned that the business of video games is a 200 billion primary business where the video game companies are selling you NFTs, and 50 billion in the secondary market, trading those NFT or trading those virtual items once you buy them. Here's something that's fascinating, however. That represents 25 billion, or rather 50 billion in the secondary market and 200 billion in the primary market. That's basically 0.25 to 1. So for every dollar in the primary market for PC, it's 25 cents in the secondary market. In blockchain, it's radically different. For every $1 spent or in the primary market, there's an average of 50 sales in the secondary market. And the reason, of course, that's very valuable is because it tells you if you are issuing NFTs and you are getting a percentage of that secondary sale revenue, the secondary sale business can actually be more important to you than the primary business. You might give away the NFTs or price them very, very cheaply in the primary market in order to participate over the long term. And because these blockchains last forever, the secondary sales can last forever. So it's a nice revenue stream that doesn't really exist in anything but blockchain-based NFT world. Okay, so that's sort of a kind of a technical background of where NFTs are. Let's talk about what the state of the market is today. And I would say to you that NFT era 1.0 is just beginning to end. That was characterized by NFTs launched on a single blockchain, NFTs principally being about media files, whether they be video clips, music, or images. Also, a lot more emphasis on the collectability of them. So NFTs that didn't have as much utility, but their primary draw was that they had different scales of rarity. And that's what made them fun to open up. These Topps baseball cards we launched on Wax, a lot of fun opening the pack. But once you have them, you either got a rare one or not. There wasn't much to do with them. Profile pictures, that's I think a blockchain brawler. Of course, they became very popular. Again, not as much in the utility area, just the visual or the aesthetic aspect of it is what was important in NFT era 1.0. And importantly, very few big companies. This is mostly the domain of independent game developers, small groups or even individuals going and experimenting and seeing what they could make of it. Okay, so now we're going into NFT era 2.0. And a lot more fun, a lot more interesting developments that you're going to see in this era. First, cross-chain compatibility. I'm a big believer in this, which is why on Wax, which was the first blockchain purpose-built for NFTs, we started last year to do NFT launches, not just on the Wax blockchain, but on other blockchains as well. First, the Binance blockchain, which frankly I think is a very high quality chain. It's fast and it's very cheap, like Wax, but also now on Ethereum. So you will start to see this phenomenon take off. A lot more cross-chain compatible NFTs. And for people issuing them on Ethereum, the Ethereum blockchain, of course, has its issues. Those things need to be portable into other chains where you can actually work with them without paying high fees. NFTs, as a lot of you have seen, they're actually perfect identity cards because of their nature. The underlying code can't be changed. So you know that originally issued document is genuine and hasn't been modified. Membership rights is becoming a more popular thing. So this is AMC Movie Theater. We did a launch of an NFT that was sent to all of the AMC Movie Theater shareholders, giving them freebies like free concessions and access to premieres of movies that were all in the form of other NFTs that we sent to people who owned the membership NFT. So that's a cool ability. And again, because this stuff can't be counterfeited, the companies issuing them have a much easier time tracking who is actually a member and what's been sent to them. These are yield-bearing instruments, as some of you now know. Things like play-to-earn gaming are all about owning NFTs. I think this was a Farmer's World NFT. So an NFT that you can use to generate in-game currency of a game that could then be traded for real world or different types of blockchain-based tokens that could be cashed out for real world currency. So the ability to earn money on that NFT, not just by flipping it, but by putting it to work, in this case in a game, is another part of NFT era 2.0. And then of course, once you can earn something on an NFT, people want to be able to borrow it, use it as collateral. So that's becoming a more prominent fixture. Let me now talk a little bit about where I think we're headed. This is going even beyond the 2.0 era. So first, the tokenization of consumer products. So we started doing this actually in 2018 at Wax, but very few people cared about NFTs at the time. One type of NFT that I'm super interested in is what we call viral NFTs, which is just virtual plus in real life. So that little acronym, viral, VIRL, just means an NFT linked to a real world consumer product. I believe in the future, many consumer products will be sold with a digital twin, with an NFT, that will allow that to be traded either as part of the original physical item or for it to be traded first, and you'll be able to redeem the physical item when you want to actually get access to the original product. Something else to think about this, because NFTs can't be modified, they are very useful as original documents, as official documents. Think about this. There are thousands of companies in the world that exist just to verify the authenticity of documents. NFTs do this with no effort and for free. So those thousands of companies that exist to verify documents are either going to have to adopt to NFTs, or they are going to be superseded the same way Netflix went and basically demolished Blockbuster, or the music industry was upended by things like Napster and file sharing. So that's a warning to any business that has an important role in authenticating documents. It's not going to be hard. You won't need a lot of people to do it with NFTs. Think about how many companies there are that just exist to collect fees. There are companies that employ 20,000 people. All they do is collect fees. NFTs do that natively, and they do it faster, and they never make a mistake. It's all programmable, and they don't need to be audited because the software code that collects the fees is visible on the blockchain. That's another area, another industry that is going to have to change, or NFTs are going to erase it. Now, what about gaming itself? I believe that blockchain-based gaming will not be won by the existing companies in the space, what we call incumbents. I think blockchain gaming will be dominated by native blockchain gaming companies that started out doing this. And the reason for that is because it's always been that way in the gaming business. Whether that was the arcade games, which did not ultimately migrate to console. The PC gaming companies were not console games. Browser-based games, yep, those did not come from PC companies, and so on. mobile games, mobile game companies were not browser-based or PC game companies. It's just the way gaming seems to work. The people who adopt a new technology and use it for gaming tend not to come from the previous gaming platform, which is also why I say blockchain-based gaming companies will ultimately be dominated by a brand new breed of companies. And that bodes very well for those of you who are interested in doing a gaming business on the blockchain. You probably don't have to worry about the incumbents for quite some time. They're going to try, but they're not going to be very good at it. I also don't believe NFTs will exist on big platforms. You will hear the word NFT, but they won't really be NFTs. They will just be regular old digital items. And the reason is because big platform companies in tech don't like giving power of NFTs over to the users. It'll upset their business model. So unfortunately, they can use the term, but it actually won't be really what you would buy an NFT for. I give you an example here. There's a large company in the game space called Ubisoft, and they have come out with what they call digits, which they say are NFTs. Newsflash, if your NFT comes with the term of service and a whole bunch of things about restrictions and where you can sell it, note here, they can only be sold on authorized third-party marketplaces. That's not an NFT. NFTs are owned by the individual who controls that account, and they can do anything with them. So these are just plain old digital items that they're trying to sell at a higher price, masquerading as NFTs. To this point, this Twitter post kind of summed it up. I thought the point of doing this was so users could actually own the items and then do with them what they want. And as this other responder on Twitter said, yeah, that's a common misconception. So another thing that's actually exciting, I think, for those of us who aren't in China, is that the biggest gaming market in the world, China, is not going to allow NFTs. And that just means that we don't have to worry about the Chinese market as competition. If we think about how big of an impact NFTs have made in the blockchain world so far, think about this. If you look at all of the top blockchains by use, by literally numbers of transactions per day, you look at the top 10, they're all dominated by the NFT ecosystems. That really tells you that NFTs are really the first consumer mass market phenomenon on a blockchain. It might be the primary thing most people do on blockchains going forward. The biggest DApp categories, DApp just means decentralized application, whether it's games, marketplaces, exchanges, they're all focused in blockchain around NFTs. So I would wrap it up here by saying when people ask, are NFTs a fad? No, they are only a fad if you think of an NFT as, let's say, an image or a video clip. If you think of them more broadly as just a computer that can be sent back and forth between people and therefore can be programmed to do anything you want, you realize they're going to be around a long time. And on this last slide, this gives you a sense of why NFTs are so powerful, because they're at the convergence of three universal consumer behaviors. Commerce or shopping, trading, and playing. Those three things are basic human desires, and they also represent trillions of dollars in the global economy. So NFTs are perfectly centered in this arena to provide the consumers with a lot more new experiences that they've not been able to get so far. And frankly, at the dawn of this new wave of personal consumer finance, they're allowing people to make money in a new way in the digital economy that was not possible with the way the internet evolved, with giant businesses controlling what people could do because they needed to protect their business model. In an open, permissionless world that blockchain allows, NFTs are going to be the principal way individuals and consumers, particularly small businesses, can partake in the digital economy. And that concludes my remarks for the NFT revolution. So I will end it there.
William, thank you so much for that. That was so insightful. I think you did such a great job at painting the picture of NFTs, how they are operating now, and I guess what we're calling Web 2.5 and how we might expect to see them evolve as we head towards Web 4. There are some audience questions. If you have some time, I can relay those to you.
Sure, I can take a few.
Great. So the first question is, can an NFT be used to authenticate one's digital identity in Web3?
Oh, well, of course, as I said, remember, NFT is just, it's a computer, but think about it as a record that's immutable, that can't be modified. So when I was a kid, licenses to drive in the US were paper. And you could, if you were really, really good with an X-Acto knife and a pen, you could change a birthday so you could buy alcohol when you weren't of age. So obviously, you can't do that with an NFT because you're not allowed to modify the underlying software. So if departments of motor vehicles or states or countries issue things like passports, driver's licenses, you will not be able to modify that document, the image in it, your picture, or anything else. So they're the ideal way to do identity going forward.
That's so sad for the teenagers out there. They're not going to be able to get away with some of the same things we did.
Very true.
Um, there's another question that just popped up, I think, based off of the back of your answer there. Can you see NFTs evolving to have more like that? And we revise the question a little bit. Can we see NFTs being attached to real world assets?
We already have. In 2018, I did that on Wax, where we linked sneakers, handbags, watches to an NFT. You could trade the NFT on eBay or wherever else you wanted to, and then the person who wanted to actually redeem the item could just hit redeem and get it. So that's why I say this will be a much more popular phenomenon going forward. Because a lot of people who buy things don't actually want to use them. They just want to trade them. And this is something that's become more and more common, especially with things like sneakers and other collectible consumer products. So NFTs are a perfect way to do that because you know that thing is truly authentic. It's not just an emoji. You know it's real and it's backed by that item.
William, it's always such a pleasure hearing you speak. Thank you so much for joining us at the Global DeFi Conference, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.